Of all the toys and action figures that I've collected over the years, this by far has been the most difficult to acquire. The recent success of the Austin Butler Elvis movie has clearly had an impact on all things Elvis, and in particular, for me anyway, it has really made the ability to get hold of this figure extremely difficult. Now, before we get this figure opened up and looked at and finally put in place on my display, let's take a look at the other figures that McFarlane made for us between 2004 and 2008, and I will give you my opinion on the line. The first figure McFarlane gave us was back in June 2004 with the '68 Comeback Special, which just happens to be my favourite Elvis look. Now this one came with a little stage, mic stand with microphone, chair, Elvis logo, and of course Scotty Moore's borrowed electric guitar. Everything about this is fantastic, and as we get down the line you will see how the accessories that came with these figures ended up being less and less, to the point where there were no accessories. But to start things out, the '68 Comeback Special is a fantastic figure. In September of 2004, McFarlane then gave us the figure that they have labelled the Rockabilly Elvis, which is from his 1954 era. Again, the equipment that this comes with is fantastic. We've got a nice stage with, of course, the Elvis Presley font, mic stand with a microphone, and the beautiful engraved acoustic guitar. All in all, really well done, and they've even done it in such a way that you can see Elvis sort of standing there on his nice white loafers. Really looks good, although of all the figures that were done in this line, I think the face sculpt on this one is the least good, but it's still not bad, and you can clearly tell it's meant to be Elvis Presley. The final figure from 2004 came out in November of that year and is the 1970 Vegas Elvis. Now, because the base of this one is so high, the figure itself is quite a bit shorter than the rest of the figure, so looks slightly out of place, but it's not that big of a deal. Very nicely sculpted jumpsuit, and again, holding the microphone, and his rings have been painted, so they do look the part. Now, the one thing I would have liked to have seen would have been for this to have been all illuminated. I believe that could have been done, but for whatever reason wasn't. But regardless, still a very nice looking figure. In 2005, there was only the one 6-inch figure released, and that was in June of that year, and that is the 1956 New York City performance, where Elvis is of course wearing his famous gold suit. Now, unfortunately, the plastics used for the arms and legs is different to that used for the jacket, and as a result they have decolored at different rates, so it does look slightly off. I'm sure when these were brand new it would have all matched, but unfortunately due to the different plastic used, they do look not quite as good in 2022. But again, wonderful display piece, nice backdrop with the sort of poster that was used back in '56, microphone stand, and again they've sculpted his feet in one of his infamous poses. Again, another great figure, nice face sculpt. It's just a pity about the jacket being slightly discoloured. In February of 2006, they then gave us the Jailhouse Rock Elvis, and this one is fantastic, with the base actually being the 7-inch single, and of course the infamous jail doors from the movie. Now this figure looks great, great likeness, and also he's got the tiptoe stands done perfectly. And I should add as well, all these figures do attach to the bases with the use of foot pegs. And this one does look fantastic. Everything about it spot on, and definitely one of the better figures in this line. The final figure from 2006 came out in June of that year and is the Blue Hawaii Elvis from 1961. This one's great, complete with surfboard, tiny little ukulele, and a nice cardboard backdrop. Even the plinth itself has a nice sandy effect to it. All in all, very well done. The face sculpt, not one of the best in the line, it's not bad, but overall it's a very nicely sculpted figure and really does add to the collection. The penultimate figure in this line was released in August of 2008 and is the '73 Aloha from Hawaii Elvis. Now, as you can see, The base that came with this is pretty awful. It's a standard, clear figure stand, doesn't look at all good. There are no microphone accessories, none of that good stuff. And this clearly was the beginning of the end for this line. Now, with all that said, the sculpt is pretty good. The face is so-so, but the American Eagle jumpsuit does look fantastic, especially on the back. Now, one thing that does confuse me now, I may be wrong, so please feel free to correct me in the comments, but on the concert that was broadcast live via satellite, at the end of Can't Help Falling in Love with You, Elvis took the cape off and tossed it on the ground. So he never made this pose in that concert. Now, the rehearsal concert, he did keep the cape on and did do a few sort of similar poses, but I think he was on his knees at the time, so I don't believe this pose ever was seen in either of the Hawaii shows, but I could be wrong. But regardless, they've done a pretty good job. But as I said, the lack of accessories and the really simplified base does show us that this figure line was very much on its way out at this point. So, as I just mentioned with the Aloha from Hawaii Elvis, you could see that as the line progressed, the amount of accessories that came with each figure got less and less, and the packaging also got to be quite a bit less. Now, in this instance, the wrongly labeled Gospel Elvis, If I Can Dream was not a gospel song, but I guess Todd McFarlane may not have been a real Elvis fan when putting this together, but nevertheless, what is quite disappointing about this is, as we saw on the earlier figures, they came with really nice backdrops and things. This one would have been perfect to have had the square with the red Elvis. Sadly, that's not the case. It simply comes with a figure stand. Again, the same with the Aloha from Hawaii Elvis. Now, just to sort of give you a quick background as to what it took for me to get this. So, I actually, as I said earlier, I did have the comeback special when it first came out in 2004, and that was my one and only Elvis figure for the longest time. However, having just recently been to Graceland, it really put me in the mood to collect the whole line, and to do so was not at all difficult, with one exception. The figures I got, all brand new, all very reasonably priced, and the Aloha from Hawaii was, up until this point, the most expensive one that I bought. However, having had all 7, it took me a long time to get hold of this, simply because there were so few for sale. They do not come up very often, and when they do come up, especially in the form of an auction, they go for ridiculous money. Now, in my case, there was one an auction that started out very low opening bid, and I kept my eye on it, and I watched the auction tick down, and from memory, the high bid was circa $80, and with 10 seconds to go, I was so desperate to get this figure, I actually bid $200 and was immediately outbid by someone else. At that point, I almost gave up hope. However, another auction appeared, which was quite surprising because, as I said, very few of these are on the market. And it was an auction that was ending around about 3 in the morning for me. So I put in my bid and went to bed and thought, well, if I win it, good. If I don't win it, fine. As it turns out, I was the winning bidder, and it wasn't that high at all. So I'm very happy to have finally got this for my collection. Now, as I said, everything about the final 2 figures that McFarlane made were a bit of a letdown in terms of accessories and in terms of packaging. So I'm just going to get this one opened up and we'll see what it's like up close and personal. So first things first, out of the packet, this is extremely disappointing. Had this been made of cardboard, it could have made for a nice backdrop for the figure. However, it's a very flimsy paper, and it's even been stamped in some way that's coming through. It's not at all useful and is a real missed opportunity in my opinion. Now the figure, much like the gold suit Elvis we saw previously, the material used for the jacket is different to that's been used for the legs, and as such they have discolored at different rates, so they're not quite the same color, which it's to be expected, because at this point this almost is a vintage figure. Now, very disappointingly, is the mic cable is just left, it doesn't attach to anything. As we saw in some of the previous figures, it was done in such a way that you didn't have the cable just hanging loose, so very lazy there. The sculpt, not at all bad. Even has this pinky ring, which I don't think has been painted, which is rather poor. But all in all, it's a nice looking figure. It's just a pity that this and the Aloha from Hawaii are so different in terms of what they come with. They do sort of stand out as if they don't belong in the entire collection, because up until this point, 2008, everything was done with such great attention to detail and value for money. This is somewhat lacking, but with that said, given the effort it took for me to get hold of this, I am extremely happy to have it. So now that it's in my possession, it's out the packet, let's put it on display and see how it looks with the rest of the collection. As you can see, I have my figure set up in chronological order, starting at the top here with 1954, running across and across here to 1973. So as this is from 1968, this one goes right here. Now, I'm sort of thinking I may need to reorganize this, because we have 3 white figures all in a row here. I think they need to be more sort of interspersed amongst the other figures, but so glad to have them all now. I think they look fantastic like this on display. And whilst getting hold of this was not easy, having it out on display makes it all worthwhile, and I'm really, really happy with this. So I hope you enjoyed looking at this little collection here. Please do share the video, please like it. If you haven't already done so, please do subscribe, and we'll see you next time.